What's up, guys? Good morning. It is Jonathan with One Big Impact. So, first of all, I want to say thank you to anybody that has followed my journey and is following my journey and is supportive. And I just wanted to really tell you that it means a lot. It really does. That's not bullshit. I've been going on YouTube for right around 11 years, so I just wanted to say I appreciate you. Um, I don't think there's anybody here from the beginning, but I want to first say that this video is going to be about how to get a bigger squat. And if you're wondering, well, is he qualified to tell me how to get a bigger squat? So I went from not really squatting much at all, being kind of intimidated by squats. And the first time I really focused on it, I barely got 300 when I tested my first max, and that was 3 years ago. And now I just hit in competition my fifth or sixth state record at 622 pound squat at 42 years of age, roughly. So that is not gloating, that's just explaining, yeah, I brought my squat up quite a bit. The first tip that I want to say on how to bring your squat up is going to be, don't really focus so much on a number. Like say you're at like a 200 pound squat. I want you to understand that if you say, I want to get to a 500 pound squat, my first question would be, well, what exactly does your 200 pound squat look like? Send me a video. You can send me a video on Instagram at One Big Impact. So when you do that, I would analyze your squat and say, hey, does his stance look good? Does he look like he has any obvious weaknesses? Is his depth okay? Depth is probably one of the most important things, because if you can't hit depth, there's definitely no reason to add weight on the bar, because aside from being like a super heavy weight and maybe their warm-ups aren't to depth because their body can't get all the way down there, if you're just an average person and you can't get to depth and you tell me your squat is 200 pounds or something like that and you're not below parallel as a power lifter, it's just not sufficient. That being said, understanding that there are elements of this journey that don't really have a bearing on weight. I don't really focus on, I'm going to get to this number, I'm going to get to this number, I'm going to get to this number. I will say the only one I really cared about was, like, I wanted to hit 666 pounds in the deadlift in a competition. And I just did that recently. But it's funny because I kind of was thinking about, like, I could do that by one meet. And it's been like 6 or 7 meet, 3 years to go from 600 to 666 in competition. Granted, I know I probably had a little bit more because I took 700 in the gym literally the next day. But I wasn't able to lock it out. Or I was able to lock it out, but I wasn't able to hold on to it. So I kind of dropped it at the top. So I probably could have got realistically 675, 680 at the competition. Maybe even a little more. But what I'm trying to explain with that, with the squat, is if you say I'm at a 200 pound squat and I want to be at a 500 pound squat, I want you to focus on and understand that the number really doesn't matter. A couple factors matter. Training matters. Not skipping days or weeks or months or years matters. The other thing that matters massively, probably even more so important than that, is just getting under the bar on a regular basis and focusing on your technique. And understanding that your technique may change. You may become less proficient at squats, and then you all of a sudden might become more proficient at squats. Understanding that some days are good, some days are bad. The biggest thing is, the next tip is probably, the first tip is not to worry about the number necessarily, because if you're like, oh, I'm gonna get a 1,000 pound squat, and you're like a 250 pound squat, probably never gonna happen. Not that won't, but let's be realistic about this. The next thing is frequency. How often are you squatting? Are you squatting like once every 2 or 3 weeks? Are you squatting every day? In my personal opinion, I would say squatting some type of variation at least 3 days a week is good. Now, that could be like a Bulgarian split squat one day, it could be a high bar squat one day, it could be a low bar squat one day, it could be safety squat bar, it could be pin squats, it could be some type of variation that either attacks your weaknesses or actually trains the specific movement. And also understand that you don't want to be PRing every other day and stuff like that. Now, the third tip is going to be rep ranges. Okay, so rep ranges of squats that are going to get you stronger. So the first thing I'd like to say about that is rep ranges that are for strength are going to be different than rep ranges for hypertrophy. What that means is if you're trying to build muscle, maybe sets of like 8 to 12 or something like that to grow your quads are going to be a little bit better than sets of 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 or something like that. If your sole purpose is to put more weight on the bar, then I would say sets of 5. Sets of 5 don't really touch on those low numbers, so you're not like trying to max out or PR all the time and stuff like that. But they're not so high that they're like your legs are trashed by the next time you come. And then understanding the next tip is going to be number 3 is going to be you need to understand that you can't squat heavy all the time. Now that's relative because it's probably like you're probably going to realize really quick, Jonathan, you tell me not to squat heavy all the time, but I'm squatting 300 on this day, 200 on this day, 500 on this day. You have to have high days, medium days, and low days or maintenance days in which you run those 3 squats or something like that, or a variation. So for instance, if you're squatting heavy on Monday, 85-90% of your load or something like that, then Wednesday probably needs to be like 60 or 70, or like a safety squat bar or something like that to get away from that heavy weight. And then Friday could be your medium day, and then Monday could be just a little bit better or a little bit stronger or a little bit more weight than it was last week on Monday, so that you're kind of progressing. So understanding that sometimes people get wrapped up in, is it linear, is it conjugate, is it undulating? It doesn't really matter in the beginning. If you're just trying to get a bigger fucking squat, like just squat more regularly and take a somewhat intelligent approach to what you're doing and understanding it takes time. Number 4, and the final one, is don't become obsessed with time it takes you to be able to achieve something. If you're like, well, I want to have a 400 pound or a 500 pound squat and I need to hit it by next year. If you're at a 200 pound squat, 99.9% of you guys are not going to be at a 500 pound squat by next year. I'm not saying it can't happen, okay? Obviously it can. But the reality is that in the beginning, you'll probably get some really good gains. For instance, I have a couple clients, one of them which couldn't squat anything because he had a back issue, but the other client, I want to say he squatted like 185 last year-ish, and maybe about a year and a half ago. Maybe it's been about a year and a half. And in between that, they ran a marathon, so they weren't like solely specific on strength. But now he's at 415. So that's pretty damn exceptional. But this kid follows his nutrition like a psycho, shows up 4 days a week to work out. And that is exceptional results. That is not common. And to get to 5, it may take another year or so. So understand, or 2 years, who knows? They're finally getting to where they're genetically having to push, which is really cool. So understanding that the time frame doesn't have as much of a factor on it as just putting in the time. So if you say, yeah, I want to squat 500, don't worry so much about squatting 500, because if you're at 200, it can be discouraging thinking about such large numbers. So just do yourself a favor and say, hey, I want to squat 500 somewhere in my life, and I'm going to tuck that back away. And then I'm going to keep track regularly of how my body is progressing and doing better, and work on my technique and squatting more regularly and doing variations and finding what I suck at, finding what I'm good at, and do less of what I'm good at and more of what I suck at. If you suck at something, you need to get really good at that something, so that chances are, if you hate it, it is going to be something that benefits you. So I hope that information helps you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Go join our Facebook group. It's called Healthy Living for a Healthy Life. And also on Instagram, One Big Impact, all one word, lowercase. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Be stronger than your excuses, and see you later.